The day I finally decided to reclaim my dignity and stop being the rich family son-in-law, my mother-in-law looked at me with a calm smile and said, "George, if you want to divorce Willow, you must return the 100 billion in assets and leave with nothing." She spun a glass bead in her hand as if she was certain I would never dare agree. But the next second, I replied, "Of course, I can do that. I'll sign the agreement right now." She panicked instantly, the bead slipping from her hand and scattering across the floor. She stared at me and asked, "Are you sure you can accept leaving the child's custody behind? Never seeing her or her son again?" I answered with the same steady tone, "Of course I can accept that. What's there not to accept?" I looked at her and said, "Madam, isn't the child about to have a new father to take over and raise him? Besides, the contract is over. I've earned enough, and I don't intend to keep what doesn't belong to me. All I want now is to stand on my own and make money." Lou mother was silent for a long time before she finally sighed deeply and said, "Since you insist on leaving, I'll arrange for you to go study music in Vienna as agreed. The paperwork will take a week. As for the divorce, you can speak to Willow yourself." "Thank you, madam," I replied. After leaving the old house, I quietly took out a photograph. In it, Willow was smiling brightly, her face glowing with happiness, while our son David danced around with a toy in his hand. The irony was that the man in the photo wasn't me. It was Makoto, Willow's childhood sweetheart. Makoto and Willow had both come from noble families. They had been childhood sweethearts, even each other's first love. But when Makoto turned 20, he went abroad and arranged a marriage with another woman. When Willow found out, she almost lost her mind, crying endlessly and drowning in sorrow. To help her recover, Lou mother found me, someone in desperate need of money, and bought 10 years of my life for 5 million, forcing me into Willow's world so she could recover. From that day on, Willow had a determined pursuer by her side. I graduated from the art department at Peking University, and any time Willow felt down, I would play music for her wherever she was. Whenever she got sick, I stayed up night after night taking care of her. Eventually, she grew used to my presence, though she never agreed to anything more. Then one night, during a drinking competition where rich young men used an international project as a bet, I drank until I suffered gastric bleeding and ended up unconscious in the hospital. That was the first time Willow cried for me. She said, "George, I agree to marry you. I believe we'll have a future." Later, I found out that on that same day Makoto had gotten married, and rumors said he was kissing his new wife. When I learned the truth, I wasn't discouraged. I simply continued fulfilling the contract and entered the Liu family as their son-in-law. We were married for 8 years. I worked hard for them, and we even had a child, David Liu, who took the Liu family name. I thought life would remain quiet and stable. But then the Ito family encountered a crisis, and Makoto returned to the country after divorcing. The day he came back, Willow rushed to pick him up at the airport. They slowly rekindled their old feelings and began contacting each other more often. To push me out faster, Makoto intentionally grew closer to David, speaking badly about me. Soon, my cold, silent son began calling Makoto Dad affectionately. Even my wife, who never stepped into the kitchen, started personally making hot snacks for Makoto. I knew then that I no longer had a place in this family. But it didn't matter. In 1 week, I could finally escape the place that had trapped me for 10 years and pursue my musical dreams. I drafted the divorce agreement and quietly waited for them to return. Half an hour later, the villa door opened. I heard the sound and, out of habit, neatly placed their slippers and straightened their coats. I had already prepared dinner, timing everything so they could enjoy the food while it was still hot. "It's autumn now," I said. "I've stewed chicken soup from our farm. You and David should drink it while it's hot." Willow replied casually, "I just caught up with Makoto. We already ate." She didn't even look up, her eyes glued to her phone as if she was messaging someone important. David, on the other hand, frowned impatiently. "Why is it soup again? I told you I wanted fried chicken." I frowned. "David, eating too much fried chicken isn't good for your health," he pouted. "I don't care. Uncle Ito took me to eat fried chicken. You're just cheap." He threw the chopsticks I handed him and continued, "No wonder they say you're useless. No money, no ability, can't even make fried chicken. You're not even as good as Uncle Ito's little finger. Garbage." Hearing those venomous words pierce straight into me like steel needles, a cold chill spread through my chest. I didn't know what Makoto had told him to make him so cruel. I looked slowly at Willow, but her reaction was even colder. "David's still young. Don't take it to heart," she said lightly, not even raising her head. Then she added casually, "David, don't talk to your dad like that." He rolled his eyes. "No, I'm saying it, I'm saying it, I'm saying it." He made a face and ran upstairs shouting, "You can't even talk back. You really are a useless loser." The living room fell silent again. The chandelier above swayed slightly. I sat for a while before pulling out the divorce agreement from under the coffee table. Willow was still staring at her phone, her frown gradually melting into a soft smile. It didn't take much imagination to know she was chatting with Makoto. That real happiness on her face, something she had never shown me in 7 years of marriage, made me laugh bitterly. I placed the agreement on the table. None of it mattered anymore. Once she signed, we would be free of each other, and I could finally leave. "Willow," I said calmly, "let's divorce. I'll leave with nothing." She answered absent-mindedly, not even looking at me. "I'll leave David with you. We'll never see each other again. If that's fine with you, just sign." "Okay," she replied indifferently. I was used to this tone by now. With Makoto back, she didn't bother hiding her disinterest. I handed her the pen. She signed her name without hesitation, but paused before the last stroke. I saw her staring at her phone, smiling like a fool. "Willow, did you hear what I said?" "About what?" she replied vaguely. Then she hurriedly finished her signature without even glancing at the document. "Isn't it just something about the charity event? You can sign these on your own from now on. Why keep asking me?" Then she stood up, returned to her room, and slammed the door shut. Watching her leave, I smiled faintly. As expected, she neither heard nor cared. I had given 10 years of my life, and all I got in return was her coldness and my son's rejection. At least soon it would all end. In just 7 days, I could finally fly far away. My wife, my son, this so-called family, none of it mattered anymore. The next morning was cold with autumn's arrival. I woke up early, but Willow was already gone. I made breakfast quickly, then headed to the hospital. When I reached the bed, the elderly woman immediately sat up, her wrinkled face softening into a smile. "George, what brings you here?" "I came to say goodbye, Grandma," I said, handing her the 1 million, the final payment. "I'm leaving soon to study music abroad. This is my last donation to the orphanage." Her eyes filled with tears. "Child, why are you giving money again?" She was the director of the orphanage who had found me at age 5 and raised me. Through my own efforts, I got into Peking University's art department and was preparing to study music overseas. But when she fell severely ill and needed a costly surgery, I exchanged 10 years of my life for the money. The rest went into rebuilding the orphanage. "I'm proud of you," she said softly. "It's good that you're going abroad. I'm happy for you." Then she paused, remembering something. "But if you go abroad, won't it be hard to see your wife and child?" I rubbed my shoulder. "It's better this way. Less trouble." She looked suspicious, so I added with a small smile, "I already divorced." She froze, then hugged my head tightly. "Good. It's good you divorced. You've suffered enough. Treat yourself better from now on." "I will, Grandma. I promise." After leaving the hospital, I returned home to pack. I had completed my final task and was ready to leave the Liu family with no regrets. Within a few hours, I packed everything, including all the things related to Willow and her son. The hand-carved wooden pieces Willow made, her drawings, the baby things I kept from raising David. For 10 years, I had given everything to this family, not because of the contract, but because I had hoped to build a warm home of my own. In the end, it was all just wishful thinking. I looked at everything one last time, then threw it all into the trash outside. Just then, a Rolls-Royce stopped in front of the house. David jumped out, saw me standing next to the trash bin, and looked at me with disgust. "What are you doing? Going through garbage? Aren't you embarrassed? Is dinner ready? I want fried chicken." Looking at the son I raised for 6 years, my heart twisted with cold anger. "If you want fried chicken," I said, "go ask your Uncle Ito." "You?" He froze, shocked. It was the first time I had ever spoken to him like that. At that moment, Willow walked over with Makoto. "George," she said, "Makoto's house is under renovation, and he needs to stay with us for a few days. You don't mind, right?" It was my first time seeing Makoto in person. His handsome face hadn't aged. No wonder Willow had always been obsessed with him. I, on the other hand, once young, was now worn out by years of exhaustion. David ran over, shouting, "Hurry up and help Uncle Ito carry his luggage. You bad dad, did you hear me? Otherwise, I won't like you any more." "I twisted my shoulder," I replied calmly. "I can't help with anything." A cold flicker passed through Makoto's eyes, but he quickly played humble. "Forget it," he said softly. "I shouldn't stay here. I'm an outsider. It's not right to trouble Mr. Wang." He turned to leave, but Willow grabbed his arm. "It's not your fault," she said sharply. She glared at me. "You said you didn't mind, so what is this?" "There's no food in the fridge," I answered. "I can't cook." Since I was leaving soon, I hadn't bought groceries. And truthfully, I didn't plan on cooking ever again. After 10 years of enduring, I had no intention of backing down anymore. Upon hearing this, David immediately began throwing a tantrum. He yelled, "I knew it. You're the worst dad ever. Now you can't even prepare a meal. Are you trying to starve us? Worst dad. I want Uncle Ito to be my dad instead." Seeing this, a flash of smugness crossed Makoto's eyes, and he quickly put on a hypocritical expression. He said, "David, how can you talk to your father like that? It's very rude." "Sorry, Uncle Ito. I'll be more careful next time," Makoto said. "Never mind, since there's no food at home, why don't we just go to the Western restaurant we passed by and eat there? I'll order you some fried chicken separately." David cheered, "Yay! Uncle Ito is the best." David clung to Makoto's leg and acted like a spoiled child while Willow happily watched from the side. The scene looked so warm and loving. The three of them, without hesitation, got into the back seat, and Willow asked Makoto to drive so that he could rest. On the way, Makoto chatted and played games with Willow and David, laughing and joking non-stop, clearly treating me as if I were invisible. Makoto laughed and said, "Mr. Wang, I'm just catching up with Willow. Don't mind me." He deliberately added, "After all, you don't know about our past, so it's not appropriate for us to talk about it in front of you." I responded with a single, and stared expressionlessly ahead. I didn't need to know, nor did I want to. After all, none of this mattered to me anymore. Half an hour later they arrived at the restaurant. Willow took the menu and gave instructions to the waiter. "Makoto likes filet mignon. Make it medium rare, no black pepper." 10 years had passed, but she still remembered Makoto's preferences. Yet when it came to me, this was the first time she had ever asked what I liked. She asked, "George, which steak do you want?" How interesting. If I hadn't seen the way she acted so clingy and dependent on Makoto today, I would never have known that she could be so gentle and considerate. After all, I was the one who had always remembered what she liked, while she had always been picky with me, nitpicking at every little detail. I said, "I don't eat steak." My answer surprised Willow. In 10 years of marriage I had always known her habits inside out, yet this was the first time she was learning about mine. I said, "You all eat slowly. I'm leaving." They had already been seated, but I didn't want to stay and disgust myself any longer. The three of them made no attempt to stop me, silently watching me leave the restaurant. I walked a few minutes before realizing that I still had the car keys in my pocket, so I turned back to the restaurant. But before I could enter, I overheard some voices from inside. Someone said, "Isn't that Miss Liu? You three really look happy together." The person continued to tease, "Is this handsome guy your husband? He's even better looking in person. No wonder you never show off your love in public. I bet you're afraid others will try to steal him." Although Makoto had been living abroad for years and was almost forgotten by high society circles, his poised manner and speech quickly caught the attention of the gossiping crowd, and everyone felt a bit more favorable toward him. One person remarked, Mr. Liu and Mr. Ito really make a perfect couple. How long have you been married? Your child has grown so much." Willow's face turned slightly red, but she didn't deny it. Meanwhile, David was eagerly adding fuel to the fire, continuously calling Makoto Dad. Watching this scene before me, I felt a brief moment of discomfort, but I quickly regained my composure. What was there to be angry about? I was just Lou's tool for pleasing Willow. Once the contract was over, the business was concluded, and nothing was my concern anymore. Inside the restaurant at this moment, Makoto happened to spot me through the window and, deliberately spearing a piece of steak, gently held it up to Willow's mouth. He said, "Willow, thank you for helping me find a place to stay. It must have been exhausting." Willow smiled lightly and shook her head. "It wasn't difficult. Your matters are my matters." She smiled again and then opened her mouth. Makoto leaned in closer, almost face to face with her, his movements intimate and suggestive. At that moment the crowd around them began to tease. "So sweet. Am I watching a drama? Give her a kiss. Kiss her." David mischievously added, "Mom, hurry up and kiss him." "I can't wait." Willow pursed her lips. "Behave. We're in public. Be mindful of the impact." Her face flushed and she softly scolded them. But this only excited Makoto further, who proceeded to kiss her by slipping his hand into her hair. Willow hesitated at first, but as he drew closer she eventually gave in, slowly closing her eyes to enjoy the moment. Seeing this shy act from outside the window, I couldn't help but scoff. So this so-called Liu family princess wasn't always aloof and indifferent, she just lacked interest in others. I didn't feel like enduring any more of this sickening scene. I handed the car keys to the waiter and left the restaurant without a second glance. "Ms. Liu, a gentleman just came and returned your car keys," the waiter said as he approached. The two inside were still huddled together, their faces filled with sweetness and happiness. But when Willow heard this, she suddenly turned toward the door and asked, "What? Did George come back just now?" Makoto noticed how much this seemed to matter to her, and a flicker of displeasure crossed his face. He pretended to be surprised and said, "Oh no, I was just joking. Do you think Mr. Wang will be upset when he sees this?" David pouted, "Uncle Ito, don't worry about him. He's just our servant. Besides, you and Mom have dated before, so what's wrong with a kiss?" "David, stop saying things like that." Although he was just a small child, he always managed to say things that were both vicious and mature. Willow's face shifted slightly, halting her son's words, then she quickly packed her things and rushed out. On the cold sidewalk, Willow jogged to catch up with me, calling out as I was about to take a cab. As we locked eyes for a moment, she held her breath, ready for a confrontation. But after a long silence, I remained as calm as a still pond. Willow finally spoke. "Don't misunderstand what you saw. It was just a joke with Makoto. There's no other meaning." Seeing that I didn't react, Willow's frustration grew and she said, "Are you mad at me? There's nothing I could do with so many people teasing us." I replied, "I'm not angry with you." I calmly said, "Is there anything else?" Willow shook her head, standing frozen as she watched me get in the car and leave. For some reason, a strange feeling stirred inside her. When did George become so magnanimous? Behind her, Makoto had caught up and she dismissed her thoughts, returning to the restaurant to finish the meal. As night fell, the group returned to the villa, chatting and laughing. Once they entered, Willow kindly prepared a set of sheets and toiletries for Makoto, though she had never done housework and didn't know where anything was. Though she felt a little uneasy, she ended up asking me to help. I silently gathered the things and retreated to my study, closing the door behind me. Makoto, holding a towel, sighed and said, "Looks like Mr. Wang still has some hostility toward me. Maybe I should stay at a hotel tomorrow." Willow replied, "Hotels can't compare to a villa in comfort." With a slightly complicated expression she added, "George was acting a little strange today. Don't take it personally." David immediately grabbed Makoto's hand, saying, "Uncle Ito, my dad has taken over the study. Tonight you should sleep in the master bedroom with us." Makoto hesitated. "Isn't that a bit much?" David said, "Oh, come on, you're the guest. We can't let you sleep on the couch." "All right," Makoto reluctantly agreed. Not half an hour later my phone buzzed with several pictures. They were from Makoto. He sent, "Mr. Wang, could I borrow your razor?" The photos included the razor and images of Makoto playing games with Willow and David. I replied, "It's something I've used, but if you don't mind, go ahead." I casually responded, turned my phone to silent, and fell asleep peacefully. Time flew by, and 2 days later, only 4 days remained before the cooling-off period for the divorce ended. I had already purchased the instruments I needed for my continuing education and was practicing in my room. But downstairs the noise from Makoto and David was increasingly annoying. I went downstairs and found that they were playing around with the fish tank. "Ito, uncle, I want to play Cat Catches Fish. Can you bring the fish tank down for me?" I stopped them. "Wait." I blocked their path and said, "You can't play with the fish. Choose something else." David had often played with this fish tank before, and each time he'd torment the fish to near death, leaving me to clean up the mess. I had scolded him many times, but all I got in return were curses and hostility. This time I stopped him because I didn't want to see the fish I had spent money on and cared for being ruined again. He shouted, "You just don't want me to play." David growled in anger, and Makoto took the opportunity to speak up. "George, what's a few fish worth? You don't need to kill the kids' enthusiasm." I smiled. "Whether they're worth something or not, we shouldn't destroy things that others value. There should be basic principles in life." He retorted, "Principles are worth nothing." Makoto sneered and poked my shoulder. "You talk about principles, but did you manage to hold on to your woman? Keep your family together." Makoto had always been a person who kept score, and after being rebuffed that night he was even more eager to humiliate me. I replied, "I only protect what's important." I calmly returned the fish tank to its place and said, "What you're talking about isn't as important to me as the fish. If you want it to be precious, take it." Makoto was now furious, his breath coming fast. "You're just being stubborn. I don't believe you've been married for 10 years and feel nothing. If you're smart, you'll get out of here. Don't make me take action." This time I didn't even bother to respond. I simply turned and walked away. Makoto's eyes flashed with malice and he grabbed the fish tank. I quickly reached out and gripped it tightly. The two of us struggled and the fish tank was accidentally knocked to the ground. Crash! Glass shattered everywhere and sharp shards instantly cut our skin. At that moment Willow happened to come down the stairs. When Willow saw the scene before her, she rushed downstairs, carefully checking Makoto's injury, her face full of worry and panic. "Makoto, are you hurt?" "I'm fine." "Ah." Makoto collapsed, clutching his thigh and feigning pain. Willow anxiously said, "You're fine. I'm calling an ambulance right now." She was distressed, hurrying to bandage his wound. After everything was done, she turned to look at the broken fish tank and asked, "So what happened?" "It was him." David immediately jumped out and pointed at me, saying, "He insisted on fighting us for the fish tank. Uncle Ito got hurt because of me." Willow furrowed her brows and said, "George, didn't you say you wouldn't get angry?" Her eyes were cold as ice as she glared at me. "How dare you bully Makoto behind my back? How despicable! Despicable!" I pressed my hand to my wound, my voice trembling. "These fish have been carefully raised by me for 2 years. They came to take my things. Get your facts straight." I thought Willow would be able to distinguish right from wrong after hearing the truth, but she turned her words around and became even angrier. "So what if you've raised them for 2 years? They're just a few fish. Are they more important than people? Apologize to Makoto right now." David, too, yelled, "Apologize to Uncle Ito. You're a bad person." The mother and son tried to scold me, but just then the sound of an ambulance arrived and they quickly helped Makoto out the door. I stood there frozen, and after a moment I squatted down and gently scooped up the dying fish. A sharp pain shot through my heart as I realized how much I cared for them. Only then did I notice the pain in my hand. The wound was deep and gruesome, far worse than Makoto's cut. But all the bandages at home had been used up by Willow, so I had no choice but to wrap it with my clothes and, gritting my teeth, make my way to the hospital. As the doctor bandaged my wound, a few other patients passed by. One of them said, "Did you hear Lou's daughter used all the imported medicine to help Ito recover quickly?" Another responded, The whole floor's nurses have been called to the VIP room, all serving Mr. Ito alone. A third one said, Lou's daughter is such a perfect woman. If I had a wife like that, a perfect woman, using all the medicine for a small injury, what kind of absurdity was that? I couldn't help but scoff inwardly. An affair with her son while married, treating her husband like a dog. Truly a rare gem of a person. After leaving the hospital, I received an invitation from the Vienna Music Academy. They wanted me to prove that my abilities hadn't regressed by composing a song as a test. So I found a recording studio far from the city center to record a new song. The suburban field stretched out in front of me, connecting with the mountains in the distance, offering a peaceful and refreshing view. For the first time in 10 years, I could finally breathe. For 2 whole days I immersed myself in this peaceful land, cutting myself off from the outside world and slowly rediscovering my long-buried musical talent. With just 1 day left before my departure abroad, I finally sent my work via email. But when I opened my phone, 99+ missed calls and messages flooded in, almost all from Willow and David. I was puzzled. Wasn't Willow supposed to be taking care of Makoto? Why was she contacting me? Confused, I took a taxi back to the villa. As soon as I entered the door, the butler and gardener came over, their faces grim. Wang, sir, you're finally back. The house has been a mess these 2 days. Lou and the young master have been asking about you constantly. It dawned on me that the mother and son were simply not used to having no one to wait on them. David was in school, but Willow had been cooped up at home, almost going mad. Willow asked, "Where did you go the other day?" She leaned against the door, her voice much softer than usual but still cold as ever. I replied, "The recording studio." She asked, "What made you suddenly want to go there?" I answered, "To clear my head." I brushed off the question. After all, she had never cared about my hobbies. Whether it was fishing or gaming, to her they were just bad habits of mine. She only cared about whether I satisfied her emotional needs and catered to her preferences, so I didn't feel the need to explain myself. After a brief silence, Willow spoke up, "About the fish tank incident. Don't take it personally. Makoto is a guest and he's been spoiled by his family since childhood. I'm just standing up for him. Makoto has already moved out. You promised not to be angry, so don't make a fuss over something so trivial." Even her apology was reluctant, as if she were blaming me. Had it not been for my brief absence, she probably wouldn't even have bothered to speak to me. I remained silent and went upstairs to grab my luggage. "Wait, there's one more thing." Willow suddenly stopped me and, from the cupboard, she took out a fish tank. "This is one I personally picked out from the market as compensation." I suddenly chuckled and said, "No need. They're just a few fish. If they die, then they die." I was about to leave anyway, and raising more fish would be in vain. Besides, the ones I liked most had already died and nothing could replace them. She asked, "Really?" Seeing my magnanimity, Willow felt uneasy, almost as if she didn't recognize me anymore. That night I still slept in the study. The next morning I got up as usual to make breakfast for her and David. The steaming seafood porridge was served on the table, and Willow felt like everything she had missed had returned. But what she didn't see was that I was double-checking my flight schedule. An hour later, Willow took David to attend the group's charity dinner without informing me, because today Makoto was also there. In the grand hall with its golden decorations, the elite from all walks of life mingled, glasses clinking and conversations lively. Willow, dressed in a luxurious gown, settled her son and immediately went to find Makoto. Not long after, I also entered the hall. I was there to get my visa from Lou's mother, but as I passed through the crowd I overheard various gossip. Someone asked, "Why is David alone? Did his mom go find Makoto again?" Another person remarked, "Lou's daughter is really obsessed with Makoto. I heard that just the other day, to make up for past regrets, she bought him his favorite custom yacht worth hundreds of millions." Who would have thought after all these years Lou's daughter still can't let go of Makoto? I remember when they were childhood sweethearts, she used to follow him everywhere, baking him cakes and treats. Whenever he didn't like one, she'd remake it from scratch. Another person added, "By the way, David, your mom loves Ito so much, why don't you let him be your new dad?" The crowd burst into laughter, and David tilted his head back, innocent and naive. He said, I like Ito too. I want him to be my new dad." He turned and saw me, his little face suddenly filled with disgust. He said, "Why is this bad dad here? You're not welcome." Upon hearing this, a group of spoiled rich kids surrounded me, their eyes brimming with mockery. One of them sneered, "Well, well, if it isn't Willow's useless husband. Last time you hurt Makoto and now you're here to cause trouble again. Lou's daughter is just pitying you. Don't even think about climbing up the ladder as a kept man. You should leave now." The crowd's harsh words and insults kept pouring in, all urging me to leave. I didn't want to engage, so I continued up to the second floor. But suddenly I was pushed by David. I didn't notice in time and stepped on a fallen wine bottle, crashing hard on the stairs. With a loud bang my head hit the floor, blood flowing everywhere. David cried out, "Hurry up and leave. Don't ruin Mom's relationship with Ito." Realizing I had been pushed by my own son, I felt as if I had fallen into an ice-cold abyss. I gritted my teeth and stood up, the sight of my bloodied head horrifying. I asked, "David, why did you push your dad?" Willow, hearing the noise, rushed over, carefully helping me up. She said, "George, I'll take you upstairs to bandage your wound." But before she could move, a waiter hurried over saying, "Miss Lou, Mr. Ito is about to pass out from drunkenness. You should go check on him." Willow furrowed her brows, a hint of hesitation on her face. She said, "George, I replied, "I can walk on my own." I gripped the handrail, struggling to move. I said, "Go check on Makoto. David has already gone over. Don't lose track of him." Hearing this, a flicker of panic flashed in Willow's eyes. She seemed to feel that my apparent magnanimity wasn't unconditional tolerance but rather an indifferent attitude. "Mom, come quickly, Ito's throwing up." Hearing her son's call, she turned and walked away, a hint of guilt in her voice as she said, "Wait for me a few minutes. I'll go take care of Makoto first." As soon as Willow left, I silently went upstairs. I knocked on Lou's mother's private room and she opened the door, startled. She asked, "What happened to you? Let me call an ambulance." I said, "No need. My flight is delayed." She asked, "Delayed? Why are you in such a hurry to leave?" I answered, Lou's mother sighed deeply, unable to stop me. "I know you've been wronged all these years. I won't stop you. Here are the documents and the visa. If you need anything else, just let me know." "I need one more thing," I calmly said. "Don't tell Willow and David where I am. I don't want to be disturbed." "Thank you, ma'am." The clear sky with light clouds framed my view as I grabbed my luggage outside the venue and looked up. From today on, everything to do with the Liu family had nothing to do with me. The storm of the past 10 years had suddenly ceased, and I was finally about to embrace a new beginning. I glanced back one last time, bidding farewell to my old self. Then, without hesitation, I turned around and walked toward the airport. Meanwhile, at the banquet table in the restaurant, Makoto was whispering something to David and, as soon as he saw Willow approach, he collapsed onto the ground. "Mom, Ito uncle is unconscious. You should take him to his room to rest." Willow exerted all her strength to help Makoto to the bed in the room. But just as she was about to leave, he suddenly opened his eyes drunkenly, wrapping his arms around her neck. "Willow, how about we stay here?" Makoto pulled her closer, turning and pinning her to the bed. Willow's face instantly flushed red and she shyly asked, "Aren't you drunk?" Makoto laughed and said, "With how irresistible you look today, why would I still be drunk?" Makoto gently loosened her clothes and was just about to kiss her when she blocked him. Willow said, "Not today, George is still injured. I need to take care of him." Makoto persuaded, "After today there might not be another chance like this." With Makoto's repeated insistence, Willow finally gave in and surrendered to him. 2 hours later, the banquet had long since ended and Willow searched the entire restaurant but could not find any sign of George. She grew frustrated and hurriedly returned home. After calling around the house, only a few servants responded. "Miss Lou, Mr. Wang hasn't come back since this afternoon." "What?" Willow's frustration slowly turned into anger. Normally when George got injured he would simply bandage it up and then go home to do laundry and cook for her and David, never going to the hospital. But today, he neither waited for her nor came home. What was he up to? Willow said unhappily, "Find him immediately and tell him to stop throwing a tantrum." After giving the order, Willow went back to her room to rest. But as soon as she entered, she realized that many things were missing from the bedroom. Books, clothes, even their wedding photos, everything related to George had disappeared. Normally George would throw out old things while doing housework, but today it seemed like he had thrown away too much. A sudden suspicion flashed in Willow's mind as her eyes scanned the room, finally landing on an open envelope on the bedside table. When she opened it, 5 large words popped up on the cover: "Divorce Agreement." In the next second her face darkened and she couldn't believe what she was reading. George voluntarily gave up his billion-dollar share of assets, even renouncing custody of their son. The final page even had Willow's name signed on it. That's when she remembered that a week ago George had asked her to sign something. She had been chatting with Makoto at the time and hadn't paid attention to the content. She never imagined it would be a divorce agreement. The documents were crumpled up and thrown violently into the trash can. Willow murmured in disbelief, "Divorce? What a joke." George had been the punching bag for 10 years, dutifully serving her and their son without a word of complaint. But as soon as Makoto appeared, he dared to abandon them and give up the wealth and honor. No, he must be threatening her with a divorce. Willow grew more and more certain that George was just trying to scare her. He would be back soon. He loved her so much. He had once bled for her, even sacrificed his dignity for her. No one loved her more than George. Driven by this thought, Willow left her room and slumped onto the sofa, waiting for George to return. But after several hours, he still hadn't shown up even by the evening. Then her phone rang and her assistant's anxious voice came through. "Miss Liu, we've checked all the hospitals and pharmacies, but we can't find Mr. Wong anywhere. It's like he's disappeared off the face of the earth. This is impossible." The usually calm and composed CEO seemed to panic for the first time. She hadn't wanted to call him personally, but now she gritted her teeth and dialed his number. "Sorry, the number you dialed is no longer in service." The call wouldn't go through and all her contact information had been blocked. Willow finally realized the gravity of the situation. She desperately thought about going to find him herself but ended up pacing back and forth, unable to figure out where to start. Her memories started flooding back and she realized she knew nothing about George, his interests, background, his circle of contacts. She didn't even know the places he frequently visited. Where should she begin looking? At that moment David came home from playing soccer. As soon as he entered he began shouting, "Bad Dad, hurry up and make me dinner. I'm starving." Willow responded, "Stop yelling. Your dad is missing." Willow felt more and more irritated and tried to quiet her son. But to her surprise, David cheered when he heard the news. He exclaimed, "That useless loser finally left. That's great. Mom, let's have Ito uncle move in. He can be my new dad." David started cursing George without restraint. His tone was so vicious that Willow shuddered. In shock she asked, "Who taught you to say those things?" "He's your real dad." She remembered that, at most, father and son didn't get along, but it had never come to the point of severing their relationship. But since Makoto returned, David's behavior had become more and more unruly, and now he was a little demon. David rolled his eyes and said, "He doesn't deserve to be my dad. I don't want a useless dad like him." David pouted and venomously added, "Today he even embarrassed himself at the banquet. I should have let him crash and die." "Shut up." Willow's face darkened and she scolded David, "He raised you for 6 years. How could you curse him like that? Tell me, is someone behind you teaching you to talk like this?" Seeing that his mother seemed genuinely angry, David appeared scared. He stammered, "Ito uncle told me. He said my dad's a useless loser and I'd be laughed at by my classmates if I had him as my dad." Just then an urgent message from her assistant arrived. "Miss Liu, we've just found out that the Ito family has gone bankrupt abroad. Makoto only came back to seize your assets, so please don't fall for it." It turned out that everything was being orchestrated by Makoto behind the scenes. Willow collapsed onto the sofa, her heart being torn apart with pain. She couldn't believe that the man she had loved for so long was actually this kind of person. To get her wealth he was willing to do anything, even driving George away. George had suffered so much injustice. Would he ever come back? She muttered to herself, I'll find George first and then I'll deal with Makoto. Willow suddenly stood up, determined to mobilize all resources to search for him everywhere. Now that she had seen the truth, she would stop at nothing to find George. 4 days passed quickly. A tip-off came stating that before George left the restaurant, he had gone to the second floor to find Lou's mother. Willow immediately drove to her mother's mansion and rushed to ask the moment she met her, Mom, where is George? Did he come to see you? Lou's mother sighed and said, Let him go. It seemed that Lou's mother had anticipated that someone would come looking for her, and she comforted Willow. Anyway, you didn't have much of a real emotional connection with him. Now that Makoto is back, I've watched both of you grow up. Mom, why are you trying to match me with Makoto too? Willow trembled slightly. After learning the truth, she grew more and more repulsed by others trying to push her toward Makoto. She said, I used to like Makoto, but I never agreed to divorce George. Lou's mother looked shocked and said, You didn't agree? Then how did you two get divorced? I didn't, I just... Willow panicked again, not knowing what to say. Should she admit it was her carelessness, or had she never really cared for George? Compared to George's dedication, Willow felt an overwhelming sense of guilt. For years George had cared for her and their child more meticulously than her own parents, even to the point where he treated them like treasures. She was irritated. When she felt down, George would go out of his way to make her happy. Whenever they fought, he was always the first to back down. She had no appetite. George would bring her a different dessert every half hour. Willow couldn't imagine how terrible her life would have been without George for the past 10 years. Makoto might have been her first love, but now he only wanted to use her. To give up George for him, that was absurd. Seeing that her daughter was still upset, Lou's mother took a contract from her drawer. Fine. I'll tell you the truth. Back when Makoto left for abroad you were miserable, so I found someone to help you through it. It turned out George had urgently needed money at the time and, to the tune of 5 million, he had spent 10 years looking after her. They had hoped to marry, have children, and live a normal life. But with Makoto's sudden return, George had sacrificed his wealth and even his child's custody, deciding he would no longer enter the Liu family. Lou's mother continued, but Willow's ears began to ring. Her hands trembled uncontrollably and the contract she was holding nearly turned white from her grip. Had George been kind to her all these years simply as a task? Had he married and had children only because of a few pieces of paper? So George had never loved her, and once Makoto returned he left without hesitation. That wasn't possible. If George's feelings for the family had all been fake, how could he have treated them so well? Willow wanted to deny the truth, but the reality crashed over her like a tidal wave, breaking her apart. She tore the contract in half and slammed it onto the table. Lou's mother sighed. She hadn't expected things to turn out this way. Her daughter had always been cold and composed, only losing control when Makoto left. Now she was doing it again because of a few words from him. If she didn't find George soon, Willow might do something drastic again. Willow looked up, her eyes burning with determination. Mom, you must tell me where George went. Lou's mother hesitated for a long time but finally decided to tell her daughter George's whereabouts. However, when she contacted her subordinates, she learned that George had changed his flight and cut off all surveillance. At that moment Willow felt a wave of desolation wash over her. It seemed George was determined to sever ties completely. Lou's mother quickly tried to comfort her. Don't worry. I can confirm he's at the Vienna Music Academy. The rest you'll have to find on your own. Okay, Willow's hope reignited. She immediately arranged for a private plane to take off at noon. When she returned home to pack, she found her son had brought Makoto inside. Makoto asked, Willow, where are you going? Willow's voice had grown cold, tinged with impatience. What's it to you? Seeing the man in front of her again, she only felt disgust and hypocrisy. Makoto was taken aback but still stepped forward to show concern. Are you feeling unwell? Let me take you to the doctor. She pushed him aside. Move. I'm going to find George. Makoto was stunned. He hadn't expected that she had been searching for George all these days, not coming to see him. What had George done to make her like this? Makoto cursed under his breath, then pretended to be in pain and collapsed to the floor. He said, Willow, the wound from the fish tank is inflamed. It hurts so much. Help me. This time Willow didn't even glance at him as she walked past. David immediately shouted in distress, "Mom, don't you like Uncle Ito the most? Why are you still looking for that useless man?" Willow furrowed her brows. "Who's the useless one?" She glared at her son, her eyes cold with fury. She bit her lip and said, "Your own father was driven away by you, and now you call him useless. Makoto, are you behind all this, teaching my son to say such things?" Makoto broke out in a cold sweat, his voice hoarse as he said, "Willow, what are you talking about? I don't understand." Willow's anger boiled over. She ripped off the bandage, revealing a completely healed wound. "Stop pretending. You've been scheming to drive George away. I was going to settle this with you later, but now you've walked right into my trap. Don't blame me." Makoto had never seen Willow this hysterical, and his face turned pale with fear. He was well aware of the Liu family's influence and the consequences of crossing them. He pleaded, "Willow, please let me explain. I did it because I love you. George is not worthy of you. We've been in love since childhood. Come back to me. I'll take care of you and David for the rest of my life." He desperately crawled to Willow's feet, gazing at her with affection. But Willow only threw the documents in his face. "Is this your idea of a lifetime of responsibility? When you were 19 you left me and went abroad. Now you're broke and want to come back and grab my fortune." Her eyes were freezing, filled with endless disappointment. For a selfish, hypocritical man, she had lost her true love, George. This wasn't just disappointment in Makoto, it was disappointment in herself. Makoto quickly said, "This isn't true. Don't believe the rumors." Makoto struggled in panic, but Willow didn't give him another chance. She had him thrown into a car and sent to his creditors. The creditors had been too afraid to act due to the Liu family's power, but now that they knew Makoto hadn't secured any money, they wouldn't let him go. Makoto screamed, "No, please, Willow, I was wrong." Hearing his desperate cries, David stood frozen, too scared to look his mother in the eye. Willow turned to David and said coldly, "I've spoiled you for too long. Now come with me. We're going to find your dad and apologize to him." 2 weeks later, in a foreign country, I had just finished a month of courses and was leisurely strolling outside the Vienna Music Academy. At that moment, Anna quietly appeared behind me. Since we were from the same hometown, we had grown particularly close recently and had become inseparable friends. "George, you should check the news. Apparently there's gossip about Miss Liu. It said she dumped her lover and has been running around the world with her child looking for you." I responded indifferently, I merely acknowledged it with a sound, but inside I felt no stir of emotion. Anna asked, "After 10 years, her mother and child ignored you and now they're frantically looking for you. What do they think you are?" Anna was furious on my behalf, saying, "If she keeps bothering you, I'll get revenge for you." I reassured her, "Don't be upset. I'm doing just fine here." After comforting her for a bit, I turned into a small alley and said, "By the way, I still need to go back and cook for Ava, so I'll head off now." "All right, see you tomorrow." The evening in Austria was always so enchanting. The dreamy sunset bathed every corner of the skyline. Breathing in the fresh air mixed with the earthy smell of rain, I returned to my residence. It was a small house I rented off campus where I spent my time gardening and playing the piano. Life was peaceful and pleasant. "Uncle Wang, you're back!" A sweet voice came from inside, and Ava excitedly ran out. She almost tripped over the long apron she was wearing. I hurriedly caught her, saying, "You're wearing an adult-sized apron, little one." She smiled, "I made your favorite Coca-Cola chicken wings, Uncle. You work so hard every day, I don't want to be a burden to you." Looking at Ava's dirt-covered little face, my heart softened. Ava was an abandoned child I met at an orphanage. At the age of 6, she was adopted by a foreign couple, but after their sudden death she was trafficked and ended up here, lost and alone. It was a strange twist of fate that when I dropped my wallet, a hungry Ava chased me for 5 blocks to return it to me. Her kindness and responsibility had led to us being reunited. She asked, "Uncle, why are you crying?" I replied, "I'm not crying." She questioned, "If you're not crying, why do your eyebrows look like that?" Ava imitated me by furrowing her brow, looking incredibly cute. I couldn't help but laugh, reaching out to pat her little head, my heart full of emotion. For 10 years I had been tirelessly dedicated to what I thought was a family, always smiling and serving Willow, but she had never acknowledged me. I cooked nutritious meals for David even when I was sick, but neither of them ever showed any concern for me, not even knowing my likes and dislikes. Yet here was a child with no blood relation whose small actions had touched me deeply. I suddenly wished Ava were my daughter. I said, "Let's go, Ava, let's have dinner." She responded, "Okay." We held hands as we were about to enter, but suddenly I heard footsteps from behind. I turned around, my brows furrowing slightly. There they were, the two faces I had dreamt of escaping from. Willow and David were standing there, their hair messy and damp with rain, looking particularly disheveled. They had been in Austria for 2 weeks, searching for me every day. From social groups to the Chinese streets they had asked almost everyone they could, and finally they found my address. I didn't say a word, turning around to leave. Willow rushed after me shouting, "George, don't go." I asked, "What's the matter, Lou?" She said, "It's been a month already. You still won't come back." I replied, "Sorry, I'm doing fine here. If there's nothing else, please leave." I was as cold as ice, my voice void of any emotion. Willow began to panic, saying, "Is there nothing we can talk about? Come back with me, I'll agree to anything you say. You like it here, right? We could buy this place, hire 10 gardeners to take care of the flowers, and we can vacation here. Oh, and you want to learn music? We can bring in top musicians to teach you and, Willow." I stopped her, swallowing hard. "We're divorced. Please stop bothering me." Upon hearing this, Ava immediately hugged my leg, glaring at Willow and David with hostility. "Don't come back here. You're not welcome." David, standing nearby, suddenly felt a surge of jealousy. The nanny he used to boss around was now so close to this strange child. He shouted, "You're nothing. Let go of him, he's my dad." David gritted his teeth and ran over, pulling the two apart with all his might. After 2 weeks of searching he was already frustrated, and now that I still refused to go back with them he let out all his anger. Pampered since childhood, David directed all his fury at Ava. He screamed, "He's not yours. You're not allowed to take my dad." Wah! Ava's arm was reddened from being yanked and she couldn't help but cry. But her little hands still clung to me. She knew that if she let go she would have nothing left. Uncle must have suffered a lot at Lou's house, she thought. She didn't want him to endure any more pain. She cried out, "Uncle Wong, Ava will protect you. I don't have anything left now. I can't lose you." Her cry struck my heart like a dagger. For the first time in 10 years I was furious. With a loud slap I struck David across the face. He staggered back, unable to believe it, and started crying hysterically. He cried, "You hit me, just for this little slut?" David's foul language had only gotten worse over time. Another slap rang out. The sound echoed through the yard, leaving Willow frozen in place. I cursed, "Clean up that filthy mouth of yours." Suppressing my anger, I coldly glared at David. "I've loved and cared for you for 6 years, only to raise a wolf cub. If you don't learn your lesson now, you'll be beaten to death one day. I'm telling you, you're a Lou, not my son, George Wong. From the day you raised your hand against me, from the day you disrespected your elders, from the day you took a thief as your father, we severed all ties." Hearing these words, David cried even louder. Though he couldn't fully comprehend, he knew now that I truly didn't want him anymore. He no longer had a father. "Mom, Dad doesn't want me anymore." David ran toward Willow crying, but what awaited him was another slap. Slap. Willow scolded him, "Now you're crying." Back then, 2 fried chicken wings from Makoto could make you turn upside down, and now you're conspiring to harm your real father. Willow grabbed him and forced him to kneel, saying, "Now apologize to your father." "I'm sorry, Dad. I know I was wrong." David's eyes were so swollen from crying he could barely open them, but he kept banging his head on the ground as he repeatedly apologized. "I know you were only doing what's best for me. I shouldn't have yelled at you or hit you." His forehead was bleeding from the constant bowing, but he didn't stop. At this moment he finally understood how much it must have hurt when I was knocked down and hit my head that day. Willow said, George, it was us, your mother and I, that were wrong, taking your kindness for granted." Her eyes were red, and she continued, "We've woken up to the truth. Makoto has been punished. We're ready to start over. Will you give us another chance?" The once arrogant Miss Lu, who used to look down on everyone, was now bowing her head in apology to a mere son-in-law. But I didn't hesitate for a second. "No, why?" Willow looked at me, stunned, her voice trembling. "Did you never love me? Don't you feel anything for me at all?" I replied, "No." I shook my head calmly with no emotion in my eyes. I said, "All the kindness I showed you was nothing but a contract. I'm just an ordinary person. What right do I have to marry into a wealthy family? What right do I have to earn the affection of a young lady? And what right do I have to compete with my beloved for a place? Love. That's something I don't deserve." My cold words felt like daggers stabbing into Willow's heart. She stared at me, her breath catching in her throat. The man who once looked at her with nothing but love and affection now couldn't even bring himself to meet her eyes. She had never seen me like this before. "George, she began, but before she could say anything else, I turned away and left her with only 2 final words. "I never loved you. Not in the past, not now, and not in the future. The contract is over, and everything was just a farce." I grabbed Ava's hand and led her home. The little girl glanced back at the mother and son one last time. Willow and David stood there pale, shocked, and speechless. When the door closed behind us, it felt like we had crossed into completely different worlds. Inside, the warmth was soothing. Ava and I sat at the table enjoying a hot meal, playing around and laughing together. Outside, the last rays of sunlight faded, leaving Willow and David in complete darkness, with no light left in their lives. From that day on, every time I left the house I would find a pile of gifts at my door, each topped with a fresh bouquet of roses. I just laughed quietly and tossed the flowers into the trash. Willow still had no idea. She never realized she kept giving me a type of rose I disliked, one with thorns. No matter how beautiful, it would never get close. I left the other gifts untouched until a week later, when Willow came knocking at my door again. She apologized non-stop, and I was so tired of it that I called the police. "Sorry, ma'am," the officers told her. "Your visa has expired. You must be forcibly deported. And because you've repeatedly harassed Mr. Wong, your visa application will not be approved again without his consent." Hearing that, Willow had no choice but to return to her country. Life without me quickly became miserable for the mother and son. The new chef didn't know their tastes and often cooked food they didn't like. The hired nanny was too sensitive and would quit the moment she was scolded or hit. David wrote an apology letter every day, hoping to hand it to his father someday. Willow tried everything to contact me, but the withdrawal symptoms tormented her. She searched through her phone's gallery only to find a few old photos, selfies she once sent to Makoto, with me appearing blurred in the background. "How could this happen? Did I really never care about him?" she muttered. A wave of pain washed over her as she finally understood the truth. Only after losing something did she see its value. In the days after I left, she had only felt the inconvenience of no one taking care of her. But once the truth surfaced, she realized she had fallen for me long ago. Not only had she married me, but she wouldn't have minded giving herself to me. It was just that Makoto had been too dazzling, making her overlook the love hidden in her heart. True love is what remains after the bubble bursts. Just then, her assistant called. "Miss Lu, I found a clue." "Tell me," Willow said. "Mr. Wong suggested charitable donations to the orphanage where he grew up. The director is very close to him. Maybe she can contact him." The moment she heard this, Willow rushed to the orphanage. In the director's office, several bags of expensive gifts were placed on the desk as Willow explained her intentions. But the director immediately pushed them back, frowning. "Take them back. I won't accept anything from the Lu family." She eyed Willow warily, fully aware that the Lu family never gave anything without expecting something in return. To avoid worrying George, she had rejected all their donations ever since he left. She knew too well that everything from the Lu family came with conditions. "Director, you misunderstand," Willow said. "I only have one small request." She spoke sincerely. "I can't reach George. Could you please help me make a call?" "Miss Liu, you must be joking," the director replied slowly. "You've been married to George for 10 years and you can't contact him. How would an old woman like me have that ability?" Even the assistant didn't dare breathe. No one in a city had ever spoken to Willow like that. In the past, she would have gotten angry. But instead of being angry, she bowed deeply. "Director, I wronged George. I only want to make it up to him. Please give me a chance." The director sighed. "Miss Liu, I'm not making things difficult for you. Years ago, George became your family's son-in-law and suffered so much for the sake of curing my cancer. I owe him a great debt. I have no right to make decisions for him. Please understand." Willow was stunned. So George had signed the contract to save the director's life. For 30 years, he had been giving everything to others without a single complaint. How kind and selfless he truly was. After leaving the director, Willow went to the dormitory area. Seeing the simple environment where George had grown up and learning more about his past, her heart ached. He had been abandoned as a child and had never felt a family's warmth. With her, maybe he once hoped for a harmonious life, but she and David had repeatedly wounded him until he was completely disappointed. Time flew by, and before she knew it, it was early autumn. At the Vienna Academy, I was about to attend my graduation ceremony. In just one short year, free from trivial burdens, I had immersed myself in music and unleashed a terrifying talent that shocked everyone. I released 20 songs and gained global influence. With a golden track called Lonely City, I earned millions. After receiving my awards, Anna approached me teasingly. "With talent like yours, why are you even finishing your studies? How are we supposed to survive?" I smiled lightly. "I'm doing this out of necessity. And it's not like Ms. Anna is here to polish your career." I adjusted her tilted graduation cap casually. Feeling the warmth from my hand, she blushed. "So, what's next for you?" Only then did she realize she had already fallen for me, not just because I was handsome and talented, but because I took care of her like an older brother, giving her warmth she hadn't felt in years. "Me? I'm probably going back to my country," I said, looking toward the lawn. "You can't process adoption papers overseas. I want to go back and give Ava a home and help build the welfare home." "That's such a noble goal." "I support you," Anna said, patting my shoulder. "My family has some influence in a city. If the Liu family bothers you again, they'll have to get through me." "Haha, I really appreciate it." After that, I planned to return and pack, but Anna followed me home, reluctant to leave. "How about I go back to a city with you? We can form a group." I refused. "There's no future following me. Go back to Beijing, or your father will come looking for you." I had already sensed her feelings and liked her cheerfulness, but the gap between us, age, background, was too large. I didn't want to waste her youth. "I just want to develop in a city. We can look after each other," she insisted. "No," I said firmly. Anna pouted, clinging to my arm, but I still insisted she go back. Just then, the door opened, and Ava ran in excitedly. "Uncle George! Aunt Anna! You're finally here!" Ava had packed her things and prepared a big meal. We ate together, exchanging looks. Anna blinked mischievously, and Ava gave a silent, "okay" sign. "Uncle George, can Aunt Anna come back to a city with us? I really like her. Please." I looked at them, exchanging glances, and sighed helplessly. 8 hours later, the three of us were on the same flight to a city. I bought a villa and immediately began preparing for our first concert together. For 3 months, from lyrics to arrangements, from production to publicity, Anna and I poured our passion into every detail. I hadn't been this happy in a long time. On the day of the concert, crowds filled the venue. Before stepping on stage, I noticed 2 familiar names on the VIP list. "Willow, David, do you want me to cancel their tickets?" Anna asked. I chuckled. "Why would I? They're just 2 spectators now. This is our first concert. Don't mess it up," she warned. "I won't," I said. The lights came on, and we stepped onto the stage. The crowd roared. But one face in the audience was dark with jealousy, Willow. She lowered the light stick she had prepared. She had spent 3 months preparing for this concert too, hoping to win me back. But Anna's presence extinguished all her hope. "Mom, did Dad marry someone else?" David whispered. "Don't talk nonsense. He would never be so heartless," Willow muttered, swallowing her jealousy. After the show, she came backstage. When we met again, we were like strangers brushing past each other. "George," she said, "you finally returned to a city. I waited for you for a whole year. You came back because of me, right? How about we remarry?" I looked at her hopeful eyes and sighed. "Ma'am, the audience seats are not this way." Her fantasy shattered instantly. "You can't do this to me," she trembled. "I'm your wife of 10 years. David is your biological son." "Enough," Anna said sharply. "Now you want to reconcile? Why not earlier? Once water is spilled, it can't be picked up again. Security, escort them out. Don't disturb George." Willow's heart broke. Not only did I reject her, now another woman was humiliating her. She had always been dominant in a city. She couldn't stand this. "You must have seduced George. How else would he abandon me and David? I'll teach you a lesson, you shameless woman." She raised her hand, but I grabbed her wrist and shoved her away. "Stay away from us." "Just looking at you disgusts me," I said coldly. Security swarmed in. Willow felt the world spinning. She and David were pushed out, left leaning against a wall in a daze. We didn't leave until later that night, walking into a restaurant while chatting and laughing. Outside the window, Willow watched us, her heart sinking. She remembered moments with Makoto, how I used to stare at her the same way. Bitterness flooded her chest. She could hardly imagine how much pain I must have endured back then. "George, I'm a horrible person. I'm sorry," she murmured. But even through regret and guilt, she couldn't give up. Just as she was about to cause a scene, several bodyguards appeared. Willow's mother stepped out of the car, frowning. "Willow, the company's finances are in crisis. And you're here looking for him." "Mom, Enough. Get back and handle the company. Leave this to me." She dragged Willow and David away, then returned alone to the restaurant and paid our bill. "George, long time no see," she said, and without wasting words, wrote a check for $5 million. "You know the situation. Willow and David can't be separated from you. Given your past performance, I'll give you $500,000 every year." I laughed quietly. I had expected this. Lou's mother cared only about her daughter. Even now, she still treated exploitation like kindness, speaking with superiority. She had never cared about my well-being. To her, just like Willow, I was nothing more than a tool. "Sorry, Auntie," I said, pushing the check back and writing one for $5 million of my own. "I owe the Lou family nothing. If you're unhappy, I'll return the previous $5 million too. If it weren't for the Lou family back then, I would have made that money and gained control of my life much sooner." Lou's mother's face froze. She couldn't accept these harsh truths, nor tolerate my defiance. "What's with this attitude? I've been more than generous with you," she snapped. "If you stay in a city even one more day, don't think you can escape the Lou family's grasp." Anna stood up coldly. "Are you threatening George? The Lou family really loves sticking their hands everywhere, don't they?" Lou's mother was now completely enraged. Thinking about her daughter's heartbreak, she looked like she wanted to drag me away immediately. Anna sensed the change in the atmosphere and instinctively stepped in front of me, exuding an energy that wasn't typical of her. But before anything else could happen, bodyguards suddenly rushed over and forcibly escorted Lou's mother out. At the Lou family villa, the chaos continued. "Miss Lou, it's bad," someone reported. "Someone has provided massive evidence of tax fraud. We're facing fines worth hundreds of millions. The board is in chaos. All the shareholders are causing trouble. What should we do?" Willow sat frozen, unable to believe the magnitude of the crisis. She hadn't expected the group to fall into such deep trouble and found herself frantically trying to manage the situation. But after a year away from the business, she had no idea where to start. Then a message popped up on her phone. It was from Makoto. The message read, "Willow, you caused me to lose a hand, and now I'm going to take my revenge on you. Send me $20 million now, or I'll expose even more of Lou Group's secrets and watch your stock price crash." Only then did Willow realize she had leaked sensitive information while she and Makoto were in close contact. She never expected him to retaliate so soon. At this moment, she regretted everything. She couldn't believe she had handed over such leverage to a petty villain like him. Compared to George's selflessness, Makoto didn't even measure up to a single hair of his. She felt dizzy and helpless, muttering to herself, "I'm such a fool. Why didn't I cherish the person right in front of me?" Willow collapsed to the ground, feeling as if the world was crumbling around her. The once happy and thriving Lou family daughter now found herself in such a pitiful state. "Useless! Get up!" A furious voice rang through the villa, causing everyone to snap to attention. Willow's father stormed in, his face dark as thunder, signaling for the bodyguards to seat Lou's mother on the couch. "Dad, you're back," Willow said. "Shut up. I don't have such a useless daughter." Martin Lou, Willow's father, trembled with anger as he scolded. "I took your second and third brothers abroad to build a business, left the company to you for 10 years, and this is how you manage it. As the eldest daughter of the Lou family, you're obsessed with a man, thinking about nothing but him. What kind of behavior is that? Someone, bring the family law." Several bodyguards took out a winding wooden cane and surrounded Willow. He cursed, "Throwing your life away for an unfaithful man, with no self-respect, violating the Lou family's ancestral teachings." Whack! The cane struck, ripping Willow's clothes and causing her to fall to the ground. He continued to berate her. 10 years of marriage, infidelity, forcing out my best son-in-law, bringing disgrace to the Lou family, shameless." Another strike hit, and Willow pressed her hands on the ground, feeling fiery pain in her back, her face streaked with tears. "Mom!" David shouted, rushing over and glaring at Martin. "Don't you dare hit my mom!" Martin gritted his teeth. "Fine. Fine." Looking at his disappointing children, Martin, in his rage, nearly fainted on the spot. He pointed at David. "Then let this one get a taste of the whip." David, showing no respect, no upbringing, a disgrace to our entire family. Martin personally struck David, who screamed and cried out in pain. Lou's mother, heartbroken, rushed forward to stop him. "Enough. Stop hitting them." But Martin slapped her across the face. "You shameless woman! Willow wants to die and you let her. Look at what this family has become under your pampering." Lou's mother, tears streaming down her face, said, "I did it for her sake." Martin scowled. "For her sake? Does that give you the right to destroy other people's lives? Have you been in charge so long that you think you control everything?" He scoffed. "Today, you almost offended the Sioux family of a city. If I hadn't come in time, the Lou family would be finished, thanks to you." The three of them were completely humiliated, eyes swollen from crying. Willow was in pain, both physically and emotionally. Hearing her father's words, she slapped herself twice in frustration. "Master, the situation has been handled and the culprit has been caught." At this moment, one of Martin's subordinates entered, dragging in a disheveled Makoto. His face was pale, filled with fear as he pleaded, "Lou master, please, I beg you, let me go." Martin asked, "Is this all because of you, you miserable cur, causing trouble?" His voice turned cold, eyes dark and piercing. "You dare to cause trouble after losing a hand? I'll make sure you're completely quiet from now on." The autumn rains continued relentlessly. The first thing I did after receiving the earnings was brave the rain and head to the orphanage. The director saw us arrive, her worried expression turning into joy. "George, Eva, you're here. I've been waiting for you since last year. I'm so glad to finally see you. Grandma, I've been busy with the concert, so I haven't had a chance to visit you." I took Ava's hand. "I plan to donate another $2 million to the orphanage this time. This is all money I earned personally. I also want to ask you about the adoption process." The director was a bit surprised. "What, do you want to adopt Ava?" "Yes. I don't want to see her drifting around anymore." The director nodded. "Adoption would be good." She gently stroked Ava's sweet face and sighed. "But unfortunately, since you're an adult male, you can't adopt her alone. To meet the criteria, you must be married in order to adopt a child. Marry a wife. Where am I supposed to find one? I stared blankly at Ava. But before I could think further, a voice came from behind. Marry me then, Anna said cheerfully, stepping forward. I quickly responded, Don't joke around, this can't be. Despite my frantic rejection, the director immediately saw through my thoughts. Anna had heard the rumors a long time ago. Though she came from a good family, she had no airs about her and had helped me a lot. Such a wonderful girl, she'd be perfect for George. The director smiled and teased, All right, you two, get closer. Let me see if you make a good match. Anna pulled me closer, our faces almost touching. She asked, Grandma, what do you think? The director replied, Very good. You two really do look like a couple. Ava also thinks you two look like a married couple. Hearing Ava's innocent and serious voice, we all burst out laughing. Still feeling a bit shy, I said, Grandma, maybe we'll talk about this later. Anna pinched my arm, complaining, George, do you not like me? I'm not worse looking than Willow, and you managed to put up with her for 10 years, she said, puffing out her cheeks. That's right, the director added. You can't be that bad at enjoying life, can you? A girl like her is hard to find even if you searched with a lantern. And with a sensible child like Ava, if you don't adopt her soon, someone else will. After hearing this, I no longer had any doubts. I felt as if a little sprout had pierced through the soil, blooming with vitality. It was my heart that had long since died, but now it was starting to come back to life. Since Anna trusted me so much, I shouldn't keep avoiding it. The only way to truly accept this love was to become a better version of myself. 2 days later, Anna and I finalized the paperwork and went home to cook a hot pot. We sat around the table as a family of 3, and the atmosphere was incredibly warm. Ava looked at us eagerly and said, Mom and Dad, when the new year is over, could you pick a date to get married? I smiled. You sure do speak fast with that little mouth of yours. Anna, hearing herself called Mom for the first time, blushed. Just then, there was a knock at the door. I opened it and found Willow and David standing there. George, don't close the door. We're not here to disturb you. Willow's face was pale and exhausted, her voice hoarse. I have no home left. I've been completely kicked out of a city. We may never see each other again. I replied, Is there anything else you need to say? She said, Also, I wish you both eternal happiness. Willow looked at the warm family before her heart filled with mixed emotions. This was once supposed to be hers, but now it was too late. David timidly spoke, Daddy, can I have one last hug? I promise I'll be a good boy from now on. I'll always listen to you. I hesitated for a moment, but in the end, I embraced him. After all, he was my own flesh and blood. How could I let my son live with regret? Instantly, both mother and son were in tears. Despite the overwhelming sadness in her heart, Willow held herself back from disturbing the atmosphere of the new family and, with great effort, pulled David away. We won't disturb you any longer. Goodbye, she said. I replied, All right. I wish you both happiness in the rest of your lives. I watched as the two of them disappeared into the light rain, and I finally felt a sense of peace. Everything has to come to an end. They had received the punishment they deserved, and I had gained a brand new life. 10 years of memories. I hope they will slowly fade with the passage of time.